All right, let's get you prepared for kickoff. Now, the very first thing I need you to do, if you don't already have one, go out and buy yourself a journal. And I don't mean some shitty little exercise book, I mean a proper good quality journal. One that feels really good when you pick it up and hold it in your hands. Now this is gonna be your best friend, your therapist, and your punching bag over the coming months. So make sure you get used to carrying it around everywhere with you. Secondly, it's really important that we know your current metabolic baseline, or in other words, what your current maintenance calories are. So this will indicate whether you need to focus on actually bringing up your calories over the course of the next few months, or if you're already sitting in a healthy range and you just need to focus on healing your behaviors and relationship with food. So if you've already been tracking pretty religiously and stringently over the last couple of weeks or months, then you don't need to follow this next step. However, if you haven't, what I need you to do is track absolutely everything that goes into your mouth from now until the day we start the program. Now, I know this does seem very counterproductive to what we're trying to achieve. However, it will give us an indication of exactly where your body is sitting. And by everything, I mean everything. So every single tea and coffee and little dash of milk and bite of this or handful of that. And by everything, I also mean any kind of binge episodes that you may experience throughout this time. Now, I know the thought of tracking a binge episode might seem really terrifying to you, and it is quite uncomfortable. However, one of the symptoms of binging that allows it to continue is the feeling of being completely numb and disassociated whilst it's happening. So actually being aware of what's happening and tracking it can bring more awareness to it. And yes, it is very uncomfortable. However, it will help us move through this habit and it will help us overcome it much, much faster. So please trust me on this one. Now, I don't want you to eat any differently than you have been over the last couple of weeks or months. So don't try to adhere to any particular macro split or anything. Just literally eat as you have been and then track at the end of the day or after every meal or after every time you eat. Now, it's really important that you don't try and manipulate or change any of your eating behaviors. Once you draw awareness to your eating, this may happen anyway, but I don't want you to try and adhere to any kind of macro split or caloric amount at this stage. Just eat exactly as you have been so we have an indication of exactly where you're sitting. If you try and eat in a certain way or if you eat differently, then it's kind of incorrect information and incorrect data that we'll be working off. So it could kind of really diminish your results in this program. Now, it's really important to also not place any judgment on these numbers whatsoever. It is literally data, and this is just our starting point. So don't feel bad, don't feel any kind of emotion once you look at that number. It is literally just a number, and it's information that's going to help us progress through the program. It's going to help us understand exactly what action that we need to take for you. So now, the day before we start the program, I want you to average out the calories for over the course of that time. So what that means is adding up every single caloric amount over how many days you've been tracking and then divide it by how many days you've been tracking. And so once you have that number, just write it down somewhere because we're going to use it in week 1. Great, so now we'll know how to calculate your current baseline. Now, I can't stress this enough, we will not be focusing on stringent tracking throughout the entire process of this program. We're actually moving away from that. However, it is really important to have a really good understanding of exactly where you are right now, so we know whether to focus on bringing your calories up over time or your intake up over time if you're sitting outside a healthy range, or if you're within healthy range and we just need to focus on the habits surrounding food and your relationship with your body. So again, I know this seems counterproductive at this stage, and it is, but it's data collection and it helps us provide the map for your journey. Also received an email from TrueCoach. So make sure that you log into TrueCoach because this is where your programming is going to be housed. So have a look through your training program, make sure you get familiar with it and collate any kind of questions that you might want to ask, and we'll save them for our first check-in. Also read over the induction document in there. It's very basic. Most of the information I'm sure you already know, but it's always good to reiterate. So make sure that you're across all of that. Lastly, introduce yourself to the community through the Facebook page. So upload a photo of yourself along with some information about how old you are, where you live, what you do for work, and any other little bits of information that will help us get to know you. Great, and that's it. That's everything we need to get you kicked off and ready for week 1. So keep an eye out for the week 1 email. I can't wait to meet you on the first check-in.